We're going to talk some Spider-Noir. You have a great 1940s old school film noir and superhero. How do you approach the sound when you're trying to balance those two worlds?
A lot of experimentation. So, because it's not something that's ever really been done before, so we weren't sure exactly if it was going to work. And we came in with the idea of let's make it sound really old, like a 1940s Bogart era movie. We made everything mono. We picked sounds not just of the time period, but of the filmic era where we recorded things with older technology. We did things with equalization and mixing it more mono as opposed to being in a giant theater. And then it was just a matter of how do we find how to introduce a modern sensibility to it. And what we ended up doing was starting in a film noir mono, establish this, and then as it becomes more of a superhero show and less of a detective show, we start to expand the palette in the sound and use the space more. So if you see it in a movie theater, if you ever have the opportunity, you'll hear it be much more mono and then spread its way out.
Yeah, and in a home surround system, you could hear it too in such a way where the first spot to really see that is the spider sense coming to life for the first time when he's chasing Addison, and that was where we really wanted to showcase this idea of that he's coming back to life and his sense can hear everything. We've been in the 40s noir-esque film world, but now this is a comic book blockbuster that we're trying to present as well, so we wanted to have that fulfill through all the speakers and have it really have that low end that you would never have in a movie from that era.
That must be an interesting balancing act, though, because you're starting, like you said, mono, old school, but you also can't blow up the sound too quickly, like because the audience will be pulled out. How was the process of progressing it, where you had to kind of pace it a little, almost like saying the editing, pace it so the audience is not totally like, whoa.
Yeah, it's about picking your spots. So we first sort of marked out where the spots that we wanted to be full fidelity were going to be. So that spider sense was one, and then a little bit through the end of that scene where the oil refinery explodes, and then go back down, and then come back again when Cat Hardy sings for the first time in the alcove, and then come back again during the fight with Sandman when the Sandman gets revealed. So it was really picking those spots and then just finding the way to gradually expand out into it, or using a specific sound. So in the case of the Spidey sense, like that warble that we introduced the Spidey sense with allowed us to go from the center channel all the way around the room very organically, because that sound demanded that we do that.
And that was very much a choice made that, we wanted to make it sound like the way spiders hear, and the way they hear, we found out, was through their legs, through the web. And that was a great way to tie into the multiverse of kind of where the noir character came from, and having this idea that, well, it should be this low frequency vibration, not high frequencies, because it's all about the vibration of the web. So it was a lot of fun to be able to take that, and Ryan Collins, our effects mixer, moving it around the room the way he did, opening everything up, was so organic and smooth that we want to do it in a way that's subliminal, so that you don't know what's happening, and then as we come back down, you're kind of like with the alcove and Cat Hardy singing, he's mesmerized by it, but then he hears one of the goons coming in, and we have to slowly bring that back into the mono-esque feel.
Yeah, so much of sound and what we do is so that you feel it rather than hear it. In a way, and that was one of those elements. Although I kind of describe it as we try to be like a magic trick, where we don't want you to see how the trick is being done, but we want you to be affected by it all, and that's ultimately the goal of what we do as sound creatives.
All right, so is there one particular scene that you're most proud of? It could have been a subtle scene, doesn't have to be a big one, that, what, we pulled this off. This one wasn't easy, but we're really happy dramatically how it paid off.
For me, the Spider Sense moments in general were all great. But one of my favorites was at the end in 108, when we are in that big fight at the very end where we have Sandman and Megawatt, and we have to hear the sand and the electricity and the intensity and the spider thwips and the car going by and slow motion, and doing that and dialing it in very specifically to have that beat to go with the composing score was such a unique experience to feel, and then also take us back down to a quiet moment where Silvermane and Cat have their final moment together and get the audience to feel that eeriness of what's about to come for them. So dynamically, that was so much fun to create and build with the entire team.
And what was your favorite?
I was going to say the mirror scene, the mirror maze sequence with Cat and Silvermane at the end, because that was real opportunity to do a very film noir visual thing and utilize sound in the space in a way that the films of film noirs back in the 40s didn't get to do. So you have Silvermane and Kat's voice sort of ping-ponging around in the glass shards when she shoots the mirrors, filling up the room and everything. And it was just that, like, that's kind of the epitome of the balance between a love letter to film noir and making a modern movie.
Even underneath that, we have that subtle subliminal sound design where we have to lead you to the next mirror, and we have to have these high frequencies and low elements. So like he said, it's just that ode to noir, but keeping it in that modern worldscape.
What was the best Scary Movie 6 that made you want to come on board?
Really, I've worked with Mike and Marlon and Rick before, so that was a given. And just was just like such a great project to be part of. So, I mean, who's going to say no to that?
Now, I really like Anna Faris's costumes in this because it's later.
Right.
She's in a different state. She's a little crazy.
A little cuckoo.
How fun was it kind of like inventing her look in a different character state?
Right, so because she is the character that we love and know from scary movies before, 20 years ago, we come to meet her 20 years later, and in the script, of course, she's written as this crazy woman that's kind of gone off the grid, and she's preparing to like kill Ghostface. So it was actually really interesting because we really needed to carve like an arc, a character arc for her to start off with, like this crazy, and then slowly she gets pulled together till she's like the John Wick's badass at the end, where she just kicks everybody's butt. So it was really fun, and Anna was just so amazing and just all in. So I mean, it took us a moment to understand the real, like how crazy she really is, with the combat boots and the hiking boots, and then just like the Laurie Trude kind of like look at the beginning. But yeah, it was really a blast, and we wanted to also like keep a little bit of who Anna was before, and I did like there was one or two T-shirts which are like an Easter egg of a shirt that she wore in Scary Movie 1 that we kind of redesigned it, and on the back of her jacket, I don't know if people noticed, there's a butterfly on her main jacket that she wears, and the butterfly is really to represent the kind of like her like evolving, kind of like a life of a butterfly. So I put a few details in like that to just try and give some hints of what's to be.
I did like your take on Sinners.
Yeah.
So you're supposed to say we're spoofing Sinners a bit,
Right.
but the costumes definitely reflected, but it was also interesting in itself. Like I felt they were unique. What was the process of kind of like you want to spoof it, but you really did create a great look for those?
Right. So the whole spoofing theory in this movie is 30%. So we have to change everything about 30% in order to be legally okay to spoof it, but it's still, we want people to immediately know what it is. So of course Ruth Carter's costumes are amazing, and we wanted to evoke that look, but I also wanted it to be, their own character's look and our own look. So just finding the balance between, the real spoofed movie and, the world of Scary Movie.
Okay, so is there any specific costume you're most proud of? Maybe it could have been a lesser character, a minor character,
Right.
something like, take a note of that one.
I think the two that like stand out to me is Tiana Taylor's dress at the beginning of the movie, because that was designed for her body and only for her body. And also Shorty's tracksuit, his Gucci tracksuit when he starts out, his first look, so when we see him after 20 years, I really wanted him to look like he's got a lot of money now. And just the whole idea of him having weed on his outfits all the time.
Let's go back to me, My Adventures with Superman. What was it initially that drew you to the project?
I mean, come on, Superman. You know what I mean? That's like such an honor to be a part of that. At first, I thought it was an honor to be a part of that legacy. But then once I got to know like the show creators and the story that we were telling and how unique it was, I mean, it's been a dream project because it has so much heart. It's really about Clark Kent, Lois, and Jimmy and that friendship, and now Kara and new characters. So it's really a show about like a sense of family, and that's like really what's drew me to it.
Now, there's been a lot of iterations of Superman, and also the awesome theme, to begin with. How did you want to pay homage to the originals, or how do you balance doing that, but you have to make it your own?
Yeah, there's really no competing against the John Williams theme, so there's no point in trying to do it. So we totally took a right turn and we do a lot of like metal guitars and a lot of like big orchestration. It's a lot of anime influence, so it's like everything in the kitchen sink at the music. So I just try to stay away, and I tip my hat in subtle ways, but no, I didn't try to mimic that at all.
What I like about this is Clark gains his powers. We're following. How did his music evolve as he evolved as Superman?
Yeah, it evolves a lot. I mean, in particular, we're in our third season now, and Clark is dealing with a lot of personal identity crisis. Like he's having an identity crisis. So it's musically, it's totally changes. So this idea of this like really robust, heroic Superman theme really doesn't even work for our show because it's such an intimate story. So yeah, it's been fun to adapt the themes as the story unfolds.
Now, in the movies, one of the drawbacks of movies is we can't really spend that much time with Clark and Lois as characters. What I love about this is the opposite. We get to spend. How is that musically for you to be able to actually develop the music for their relationship?
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's amazing. That's the best part of the show, in my opinion. Just their dynamic, and it's really on display in season 1, and the audience really loved it. So to be able to score those moments was a joy.
Now, we have a lot of composing students in the audience. I like to ask, is there any particular scene you're most proud of that you composed? Something that it could have been even a smaller, intimate scene. Something like, wow, I really like we really did something special here.
Yeah. I would say the climax of season 2, when they defeat Brainiac, when Clark and Kara defeat Brainiac. In this show, I get the privilege to write 12-minute long pieces. So it's real, I really can arc things and really tell a lot of story musically. So that last 12 minutes of the season finale of season 2, I'm very proud of.
What was it about Shrinking that made you want to come on board?
The people involved initially. I've been working with Bill Lawrence for 30 years. And I had kind of gone off and I was in another direction. And then I got the call that they were putting this new show together. And it was with Jason Segel. Harrison Ford hadn't been cast yet. But as soon as I heard the storyline, I was like, let's go, I'm in. So.
What I like how the look and the design changed as he evolved. His apartment changed as he got more counted. What was the process of kind of taking him in his darkest place and then kind of evolving him throughout the show?
Great question. So we approached the series, at least in the first season, as a 5-hour movie because we're a half-hour show, 10 episodes. And the first season, Bill said initially, the first season was going to be about grief. Second season is about forgiveness. And the third season about moving on. And so we knew that, we didn't want to do an overt version of a guy in grief with bottles everywhere and garbage and all that. So we came up with these strategies to dial all the colors down, keep the drapes closed, all the plants are dying. It's clear that he wasn't taking care of himself or Alice, his family. And so over that 5-hour arc of the first season, things started to open up. And it was kind of a slow burn, but also our director, James Ponsell, came up with this brilliant idea where he would leave the right side of the frame empty to show where Tia, his wife, would have been standing if she was still with him. And so it was things like that, that were kind of developed organically in the pre-production process, but really resonated with audiences once it was out there.
Now, conversely, what was the process of Harrison Ford's office? How did you want to represent his character?
Well, I had actually started on the show, I think about 2 months before Harrison was cast. So I initially didn't know who I was designing for. And when it was announced, we were just all over the moon. It was seriously, Harrison Ford's going to do TV? It was he was on 1923, but he actually shot with us first.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, even though that one aired first. So, but the first thing he asked the producers when he landed was, I want to meet the production designer. And so I'm like, oh no. I was so intimidated. And so I had my one-on-one meeting with him. And it was literally I'd like to describe it as if I was sitting in front of Mount Rushmore. He was just, but it turned out that he was super articulate, really sensitive to, what his character needed. And after a few minutes, I just kind of fell into this conversation with another creative collaborator. It just felt like a natural part of the process. He had some very insightful ideas because he had just spent a week with Phil Stutz, who's the actual therapist that his character's modeled on. Jonah Hill did an amazing documentary called Stutz about the man, and he also has Parkinson's. So Harrison came up with these ideas based on Phil's practice. You know, when Phil Stutz would be in an hour of therapy with somebody, his muscles would get very tight. And so between sessions, he would have to work out in his office. So Harrison's like, I need chairs with really strong arms, like metal arms. I need a credenza that I can do push-ups off of. Things like that. I need a bike in my office because maybe I go for a ride between sessions. So it was all those sort of things. And then also from the Phil Stutz research that he did, Phil had created what he called his tools, which were basically mechanisms to get people to get better. And so we based a lot of the artwork in the room and some of the set dressing items based on that research.
Little Dr. Seuss.
Oh yeah,
Sneetches.
it was a good time.
What initially made you want to come on board?
Oh man, well, I mean, I don't think any composer would turn down a job scoring for a Dr. Seuss project. So really, nothing stopped me from wanting to come on board. But I was lucky in that I knew the songwriter. To be honest, we had done a few Disney shows together, and so I had an initial recommendation, which was always very helpful.
Now, there was a challenge because this is expanded to a longer version than we were accustomed to in Doctor. What was the challenge in making it a longer, run time and a bigger story?
Well, for me as a composer, it's actually easier to work in longer formats. I do a lot of Disney series shows where the episodes are 11 minutes long. They're bite-sized shows for kids, right?
Yeah.
And I came from a background doing indie dramas and long-form feature films where you have scenes that go on for 5 minutes, but with an 11-minute show, your scenes last 30 seconds, right? So as a composer, you're jumping ideas every 10 seconds. So you have to come up with a new melody or a new genre. It can be kind of exhausting. So with a longer format, you get to groove in a 3-minute scene all day and just sort of work on one moment, and it allows you to get into the flow more. So I prefer it.
And how would you approach dealing with the theme of the moon and the stars? What was the process, kind of like giving them each their own kind of musical sound, but and merging them together, evolving them together?
Yeah, having different sound palettes for each group was initially the concept, but as we scored it, we sort of realized that most of the story material was really just about these two characters who are spending all of their time together. It's really about their friendship. And it really wasn't emphasizing their differences as much as emphasizing their similarities. So there really ended up not being that many opportunities for the score to be that distinctive from one side to the other. And so we really just ended up focusing on developing a sound palette that captured the world, which was a mix of sort of Polynesian influences for the island setting, the quirk necessary for a Dr. Seuss project, like kazoos and chipmunk vocals and interesting percussion instruments and things like that, and then all the action adventure elements that we sort of covered with the orchestra. So we ended up sometimes concepts come into the conversation that sound great, but don't always end up working in execution, and that was the case here.
Back at moderating. So what was it like moderating here at Comiccon? You met just San Diego Comic-Con for your first time.
Well, it was my first time. It was a blast. The energy's crazy. I'm speaking with these creatives that work on these amazing shows. Have you seen Spider-Noir? Yeah. Spider-Noir is crazy. Scary movie. I had a blast at the theater with all of these projects that these creatives work on. Are so unique and so inspirational to me as a filmmaker. So yeah, it was a blast. I loved it. Comic-Con's awesome.
What do you enjoy most, being able to get the costume designer, editor, sound? What is the most fun part about being able to explore all these different areas within one panel discussion?
I think just craft. Like as a director, I'm often interacting with all these different department heads, and that's kind of what I feel like I'm, I have a panel of all these different department heads and experts. So we just get to kind of get into the craft of it. Like I was asking some of the composers about what do you do before you see any images of the film? Like, do you write music
just based off of a script, and then figure out how to like put it into the, and then I talked to them about like my experience with my composer and like how I like to make music before we even show up to set, and then we could play it for the people on set. So like everyone has their own little methods of doing things that works for them and for their craft, and that's the most exciting part for me.
And as you mentioned, as a director, how's it for you then, since you're getting to interview all these great people in town, how does it help you then the next time when you're working with a composer and editor, as a learning process, applying it to your own craft?
Well, some people talk about interesting things that they do, or like they'll give interesting advice, and sometimes I'm like, oh, I want to try that on my next set. It wasn't here, but at another panel I was at, someone was talking about how their director loves to do silent takes, and at the end of every take, they'll like, at the end of every scene, they'll run the scene again with nobody speaking, and they just go through all the actions and the emotion. And I was like, why am I not doing that on my movies? That's brilliant. You get all these reaction shots out of everyone. It's like you get, I'm sure, beautiful performances out of the actors when they're limited to like what they can use. And so you learn things, and you talk to these people that you respect and admire, and they want to see you succeed too. And everyone's just very friendly, and it's great.